It's Max from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He was one of her squeak toys that we got her for Christmas. The squeaker is already broken. Really? Really? I love the dog. I love the dog. I love the dog. Okay, you proved me wrong. The squeaker is not quite broken. So, next up, am I going to regret letting you hold on to that while I record? I hope not. Just chew on his head or something. I don't know. Break the squeaker. I don't care. It's better than the crackling toy she had when I had to record another video a while ago, so I'll take that. The squeaker is better. Besides, I will be talking about mice in this review, so that'll work. So next up in our non-Disney animated movies, we are going to be doing An American Tail 2, Fievel Goes West from 1991. Again, this movie is older than I am. Soon we'll be getting at least into the ones that are about the same age as me or a little bit less. So yeah, that's fun. So An American Tail, Fievel Goes West is the first sequel to An American Tail, about Fievel Mouskowitz and his family as they left Russia and made their way to America. You know, in regards to like showing the immigrant story. This one is regard to showing how, you know, they moved from New York and then they go out west to Utah, I believe is where they end up going. And this is just one of those it's just the first sequel. There are two others, both of them actually, chronologically, this one is actually the last movie in the series, I think, because there's like there's like American Tail 3 and 4. And my sister got me the movie set for Christmas, and which is very useful. Is like 3 and 4, but I've seen at least one of them once, but I don't remember 100%. I know that it involves like Native American mice in like New York and everything, so there's like some stuff there that deals with that, but I don't remember that much because it's just been so long, and I have no interest and no desire to review them for this. I just wanted to do An American Tail and An American Tail 2. So that's where we are. So going from here, we have she dropped the toy. The movie starts in 1890, so it's about 5 years after immigrating to the United States, so about 5 years after the end of the first movie. Which, I mean, I don't know if mice actually can live 5 years, but sure, we'll go with it. And even in this point in time, like, mice age very differently than humans. They age a whole lot faster than humans. But just for the context of this, they have it that, Fievel and his sister, Tanya, have aged a little bit. Their little sister is a little bit older. And, of course, Mama and Papa Mouskowitz are still there, of course. And, of course, they end up, they moved to America with the promise of there are streets that are paved with cheese and that there are no cats and everything like that, which is completely wrong. The streets are not paved with cheese and there are cats. And of course, Fievel's best friend is Tiger, who is a cat that is like a vegetarian, I think, if I remember correctly, and doesn't really like to chase mice, and him and Fievel are just best friends. But so we got to get caught up with the Mouskowitz. You are being very jingly, you know that? There you go. Now you're lost. Have your collar back. I love you. You're a very good girl. Very good girl. You sure? You are the very best little boo. Okay. But so we get basically caught up with the Moscovitz family. They are unfortunately very impoverished because Papa Moscovitz used to make violins back in Russia, and they were very famous. But now he can't do that anymore. The desire to get... She dropped it again. Is this going to be a running thing throughout this video? Is it a running gag? I have to keep handing you Max. So that's a running gag. Just, I don't know, snuggle him or something. Chew on him, sure, whatever. There's a Grinch one and a Christmas tree one, too, that were part of her gift set that she got for Christmas. So the Moscovitz family are quite impoverished. Papa's not able to sell violins anymore, and they're kind of having to scrounge for food, which is kind of shown in the fact that Tanya sings out the window, and of course they keep getting food pelted at them. Mostly tomatoes thrown at them, because I guess people don't like her singing for whatever reason. And of course, Fievel keeps having... the movie kind of basically opens with like this fantasy sequence of Fievel where he is imagining basically being in like a Wild West town with the famous law dog Wiley Burp, who is of course this takeoff of Wyatt Earp and everything for the OK Corral and everything. And, so it's like Fievel's imagining himself in this shootout and everything like that, fighting against a bunch of these cat outlaws and everything with Wiley. And then, of course, he gets, brought out of his fantasy and everything by his mother calling him to dinner. So we have, like, a nice setup there. And so it's like it's showing Fievel wanting to have more adventures because, like, technically, I guess there have been more adventures since they initially got to New York, but things haven't been as good as they had wanted, as profitable, as prosperous as they had hoped when they first arrived here, which is unfortunately the story for a lot of immigrants who come to the United States, particularly way back in the late 1800s and everything. But what ends up happening is you dropped it again, didn't you? There, you can go over there and get him if you want him. I love you, Brenda Boo. You're a very good boo. But so Fievel has these fantasies and everything, and the fantasy is wanting to be like a cowboy and everything way out west. And of course that was the new kind of thing that was going on at that point in time. Not necessarily 100% being a cowboy because like movies weren't around yet, but like some little comic strips were out and about, and stories about like famed lawmen and shootouts at like the OK Corral and stuff like that. Like those were kind of known and everything. For Nebraska history, some stuff was going on here with like Buffalo Bill, with his like traveling and touring type sideshows and everything else like that. So there was some of that stuff. So that makes sense that would be things that would be going on at that point in time. Plus, of course, relating to U.S. history, this is where a lot of like Manifest Destiny things were going on with like we must settle the land from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Pacific Ocean and everything, and there was stuff with like the gold rush and everything else like that out in California and other places along those lines. They had the Louisiana Purchase and everything already by this point in time, so it was like wanting to like settle all across the country and everything. And, trying to promote people to go out there and start settling homesteads and things like that. That's where you get stuff with, like a Little House on the Prairie getting mentioned, or kind of, those types of things were going on at this point in time. Stuff if you want to reference for like the prequels to Yellowstone, if you watch that, which I have not actually watched yet. But it looks interesting. It has Harrison Ford in it, and there's other stuff in it too that look interesting. But so, Fievel dreams of this, and Tanya dreams of, wanting to become, like a singer and everything else like that because she loves to sing. So we're getting hints of that. And then unfortunately their, neighborhood area, alley area where they all live, along with a bunch of these other mice and everything, get attacked by these cats. And the cats are led by Cat R. Wall, which is of course it's a pun of caterwaul, caterwauling and stuff like that. So Cat R. Wall is what he's, called. And he is this very British aristocratic cat. And his plan, he has this plan, and actually it's a rather good one. I'll give him this. It's cleverer than the rat in the first movie. It's a bit cleverer than that. So Caterwall's plan is he has all of his, his cats terrify the mice. They're not supposed to eat them. They're just supposed to terrify them and kind of destroy their homes and chase them into the sewers, which is what happens. A bunch of the cats show up and they start, chasing all the other mice and everything else like that, including the Maskovitz family, and eventually they all end up down in the sewers. From there, they end up coming across this cowboy mouse, who is talking about how he has all of these tickets just waiting for them, for whoever can pay to go out west and everything, to go out west and to, he speaks of this place where mice and cats and dogs all live in harmony and everything, and all of those bad cats are all gone, and and you can meet Wiley Burp and like all this other stuff where he's like going off about this, and he has this marionette that is being controlled by Caterwall, and he is he's talking about and like he talks about Caterwall, and then like it's funny because like Caterwall just like goes off complimenting his own ego. And, like, the puppet just goes, like, limp, and then it, like, snaps back to life when Caterwall realizes that he stopped making the puppet move. And, of course, the Maskovitz family listen to this. They get, like, the speech and everything, and they're like, oh, let's go out west and everything. So it's like, that's their intention. Also, the kind of side story going on here with Tiger is that Tiger's girlfriend, Miss Kitty, Lone Ranger reference, anybody? She leaves to find a new life out west, remarking that she perhaps is looking for a cat that's a little more like a dog. And so she makes this comment to Tiger, and then, like, there's this running gag that happens with, like, her perfume, that Tiger really likes the perfume, and that it's because it represents her and everything, so it's like, she sprays herself with the perfume and Tiger sniffs it, and that's just funny bits that happen there. And then, of course, one of the gags is that, of course, the Maskovitz family are going to head off to go out west. And they leave a note for Tiger, and he gets the note. And he tries to get to the train station to meet them so he can go off with them, or at least see them before they go. And unfortunately, he ends up running into lots and lots and lots of dogs along the way, which is just funny. So he gets chased all over the place by the dogs. And then, of course, the Maskovitz family head off. And on their way out there, they, of course, have this other musical sequence where it's, way out west. And it's, just, a fun little, fun bit here and there where it's just like tight, the mice are all singing on the train about, what they're going to find out west and everything. So it's a fun bit there. At some point in time during all of this, Fievel kind of, wanders off on his own, which of course he, tends to do. And he finds his way into one of the back cars where he finds these cats and a giant spider in a cowboy hat, all playing cards, and they're all talking to Caterwall because they're all talking about, like, well, why can't we just eat the mice now? Why do we have to wait? And Caterwall goes into this whole big thing where he's just like, well, so is it better to eat the food after you have to chase it, and maybe you catch it, maybe you don't? Or is it better to lull them into a false sense of security, trap them, and then eat them? Type of a thing. And Caterwall is, he's very aristocratic, he's very smart, very highbrow type of a thing. And while he's doing this, we see him trying to make a sandwich with a mouse, which is just funny. And Fievel has come across the marionette, and he realizes that this thing is fake, and he realizes, because he's listening in on the conversation with Caterwall, that, oh, this is all a trick. And so he he drops the marionette into the sandwich, which frees the other mouse. Caterwaul eats his own marionette, which is funny. And then they catch Fievel. And Caterwaul almost eats Fievel. He kind of uses Fievel as like a bit of a demonstration to the other cats and the spider. Okay, to be fair, for the spider, I have arachnophobia. This spider doesn't creep me out because it's not realistic enough. But later on, the spider has a gun. And I would be worried too if a spider had a gun. That would scare me as well. I'm like, no spiders with guns. Spiders do not need firearms. No. So there's like a bunch of that stuff that's going on. They let Fievel go, but of course they send the Tarantula is like the joke for the spider's name, to chase after Fievel. And which he does, and unfortunately Fievel, he gets knocked off the train, and of course his parents kind of see this happen and everything, so they're all devastated. It's just like, how many times are you going to like lose your child? Because that's what happened in the first movie. You got separated from Fievel for a good chunk of the first movie and only found him like right at the end. And now it's happened again. I'm like, how many times have you thought you've lost your son? This is not a good track record for you. And I don't remember, since it's been so long since I've seen either of the other two American Tail movies, I don't remember if Fievel is thought dead in any of them either, if that's just a running gag or not. Where they think that he's dead for a good chunk of the movie. But what ends up happening is, Fievel ends up, so he gets knocked off the train, and he's wandering through the desert. And he's still trying to make his way to, like, Green River, Utah, is where they're trying to get to, because that's where this train is going. While all of this has been going on, Tiger has managed to, via reasons, has ended up also out in the desert via plot devices of a stagecoach and then ending up out there and everything else like that. So we're having like two things that are going on here, or several things that are going on here, because the Mouskevich family arrive in Green River, and we see all these other ones that are representative, like other immigrant groups that were coming in and trying to establish themselves in the West and everything else like that. And the town's kind of not the best at the moment. And the Mouskevich actually have the smart idea. Papa is like, what we'll do is we will go and live underneath the water tower, because that's where the water is going to be, and we'll have the freshest water and everything. And Papa Mouskevich goes into like this bit of a speech about like, where there's water, there is life, and as long as there's water flowing through the town, there will be life and everything. So it's just supposed to be like a reference to that. Unfortunately, Chula, the spider, has gone up and like corked the leak in the water tower, so it's not, leaking a little bit of water down there for the mice. Which then has it that Caterwaul shows up, and he does this big speech, where he is explaining to the mice that like, don't you worry, we are here to build a better town, to build a better world where cats and mice and dogs can all live in harmony, where mice do not have to fear cats, and everybody gets along and all of that stuff. And will you help me? And the guy's got charisma. I'll at least give him that. And like, so they go, so he's like giving them this big speech and everything, where it's just like, where you can do this, or you could do this, and they're like, all of the mice are just like, oh my god, yes, we want this. And he's, just like so happy, he's very, very persuasive. He rolled like a 20 on his charisma check there. And he like pulls them all in, and it's just like, we'll build this saloon, and we'll make everything better and everything. So it's just like, they're all start trying to help like build the saloon. While that's going on, Fievel's out in the desert, and both Fievel and Tiger are both wandering aimlessly in the desert, and they are both hallucinating at the same time. And Fievel hallucinates these cactuses and thinks that sees these cactuses and hallucinates them and thinks they're his family. Therefore, he hugs them and gets covered in prickers, which is painful. And then Tiger hallucinates Miss Kitty and he ends up kissing an owl, which is just funny. And so we're getting like those funny bits there. And then like they end up actually crossing paths and they think that each other is a hallucination and they just go the opposite. It's like, hi, Mirage of Tiger. Hi, Mirage of Fievel. And then they just like two ships passing in the night is what they do. So that's just funny there. You know, it's just funny watching that. Eventually what ends up happening is Tiger ends up in another area of the desert. By the way, reality check here. There is no way this mouse and this cat who have lived in the city their entire lives would have the survival skills to be able to survive this long, particularly trying to get from New York all the way out to somewhere in Utah. Because that's, I think, over 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles. I don't remember the exact distance, but it's a long ways away. And they're a cat and a mouse with, like, little survival skills. Also, heat stroke would happen. And starvation would happen. But it's a kid's movie, so I'll just be like, fine, sure, yeah, whatever. And they get, eventually what ends up happening is we have this funny gag that happens where Tiger is walking by, like, these, like, old buffalo bones. And every time when he's walking, when he's not facing them, they start standing up and trying to, like, creep over to him. And, like, each time he turns around, they stop and they land back on the ground. And, like, it turns into this gag for, like, a couple of seconds, which is just really funny with, like, him turning around and, like, the things keep moving. And then he finally, he turns him, catches him around while they're up. And then they just start dancing. The bones just start dancing, which is just funny. And then they just hop on him and, like, trap him in, like, the rib cage, which was clever. And then they reveal that there are a bunch of these like local Native American mice tribe that have captured him. That like capture Tiger, and they like take him back to their village, and they have him like tied up, and they're like gonna spit roast him, which is just funny. And Tiger is just, like, trying to convince them, please do not do this. I will taste horrible. And, the chief mouse comes out. And, I mean, I guess it's not as much of a racist depiction as, like, what happens in Peter Pan. Which is good. I'll take it. It's not as bad, but it's not necessarily the best depiction of, like, Native American culture. But what ends up happening is, like, the chief comes out and he ends up like looking up and he sees the way that like Tiger is like tied up on the pole, like lines up perfectly with like this mountain range that's behind them, this like mountainous structure that's part of their land. And via reasons he's like, oh, this cat is a god. So they shifted, instead of treating Tiger like he's going to be dinner, they start feeding him. And like they start feeding him fruit and everything else, so he's good. Eventually what ends up happening is Fievel ends up getting picked up by this hawk. And the native mice actually end up throwing, like, kind of like fireworks and whatever at the hawk to, like, knock it out of the sky, because they hear, like, I think they hear Fievel screaming and shouting, so they knock it down and, like, Fievel lands into the area where Tiger is. Tiger almost actually, eats Fievel, because he takes a drink of, like, water or whatever, and Fievel is actually in the bowl. And then Fievel ends up in Tiger's mouth, and he ends up grabbing onto the uvula, the little, punching bag looking thing in the back of your throat. Fievel is, like, hanging on to that, and, like, Tiger tries to, like, cough him up. And then, like, so they're reunited, so they're really happy. And then, Fievel is just like, you gotta help me, Tiger. The cats are gonna kill everyone in town, and they're gonna do all this other stuff and everything, and we gotta go and stop them and save everybody. And Tiger is kind of like, well, I'd love to, but I can't just eat and run. That would be really rude to the mice. True, that would be rude to the mice, but you could try to explain it to them, and then maybe they could help you fight the cats. They're quite good with improvised explosives, which would be helpful against these cats. But Tiger says He'll catch up to Fievel at another time. So he, but Fievel's like, how do I get to Green River? And he's like, catch a passing tumbleweed. And then Fievel jumps into like a little tumbleweed that like rolls him across part of the desert, somehow directly to the Green River, to the town, because logic and children's show. Also, this sequence has the song Rawhide. Keep 'em rolling, Rawhide. That one, that's there, and it's sung by the Blues Brothers, which is just funny. So Fievel gets to Green River, actually runs into a dog that is supposed to be Wiley Burp, who is just kind of he's washed up. He's like the typical like washed up cowboy hero type of a thing is what he's supposed to represent. I would say there might be a little bit of a reference to the Waco Kid from Blazing Saddles there, because he does kind of seem to be a little bit of a drunk. Although, admittedly, Wiley Burp does not actually drink in the show, so that's probably a good thing. And probably something they couldn't get away with in a kid's movie, or at least not at that point in time. Well, I don't know. Disney gets away with, like, you see villains clearly drinking what's supposed to be alcohol at various points in time in the movie. But I guess since they're a villain, it's okay. But if a hero does it, it's not okay. So, reasons. And Fievel then makes his way over to the saloon, and we see that all of the mice and the cats are all working together to try to build up the saloon. And he, of course, finds his parents there. And he's just, he's very, very happy to be reunited with his parents and his sister and everything. And he tries to warn them, and they're like, no, Fievel, it's fine. The cats aren't bad. They're helping us. We're going to build this saloon, and we're going to make this town better and everything like that. And, it's all going to be great. So we have that scene that's going on. And then Fievel, in an attempt to try to prove that he is right, makes his way into the part of the saloon where the cats are. Because they're just inside, just lollygagging around and everything like that. And they talk about their plan. And their plan, which is drawn up great, because they actually use like flip motion animation to show how this plan is going to work, which I just find as such a, like, it's not a fourth wall break, but it's such a great inclusion in this. Where one of the cats, who is like clearly kind of like the mastermind design cat for like how this building like the giant mousetrap, is like doing like a flip book animation of how they're gonna set up the mousetrap and have all the mice on it, and then the ribbon cutting for the saloon will release the snap trap on the mice, and then voila, mouse burgers is the intended thing there. So we have like that's what's going on there. And I love how they have that like that little scene there. That's just cute. And of course Fievel hears all of this, and he ends up getting captured by Caterwaul, who like notices him and captures him. And then they put him in a glass bottle, and then later we see the tarantula trying to cook him. Fun. But also what happens in this scene is that Caterwaul tries to eat Fievel, but he stops because he hears Tanya singing. And he like because Caterwaul is he's very sophisticated, he's aristocratic, he very much loves like the arts and culture, and he's trying to like instill that into like the other cats that are around him. We kind of have that a little bit with like Warren T. Rat and everything, with like him and the violin, so it's like this continued thing that we see there. But what ends up happening is Caterwaul like hears Tanya singing, and he like follows her voice out to where we see her, and he is just like mesmerized with her as she's singing. And she's singing Dreams to Dream, which is actually the theme of this An American Tail movie. And she's singing that, and he's just like memorized by her, and he like scoops her up and he carries her in through the saloon into like the back area where we see Miss Kitty. And he takes Tanya to her, and he tells Tanya that he wants he tells Miss Kitty that he wants her to like train Tanya to be like a saloon girl. And Miss Kitty is like being very abrasive and very, catty, and, combative to Caterwall and everything else like that. And then as soon as he's gone, she also keeps calling him Puss, which is funny because he does not like being called that. He doesn't like being called like a pussycat. So that's just funny. And once he leaves, Miss Kitty becomes instantly very nice to Tanya. And and Tanya was like very, very scared of her, which is fair. Although, I mean, I guess technically, no, it wouldn't make sense for like Tiger and to have like introduced Miss Kitty to the Baskovitz family. But that would have been funny if that had been the case, where it's just like, if Tanya was like, wait a second, you're Miss Kitty. You're Tiger's girlfriend. And like, that might have been like a cute way of like bringing that up or like making that connection. But it's like, it's fine either way. But what ends up happening is, Miss Kitty has like this nice bit with Tanya where she's like trying to help like Tanya build up her self-confidence and everything like that. Like trying to help help get Tanya to picture herself the way that she wants to be. Kind of, gets her more, saloon girl setup is what she's trying to get her to do. But she's being very kind about it and everything. And she's being very nice to Tanya, which is great, and very supportive of her. And then they bring Tanya out Tanya to perform for all of the cats. And it takes a minute, but then once she really gets singing, she sings The Girl You Left Behind, which I don't know if that's just like a bar tune or whatever, if it was made up for the movie, I have no idea. But like, she's singing and all the cats around her are singing. And via her singing, Fievel is able to escape, and he tries to get her to come with him, but she's too, beguiled by like the limelight and everything, the adoration coming at her, for her, found fame and favor with, Caterwall. So what ends up happening is, Fievel can't get any of the mice to believe him. His parents won't believe him. His sister won't believe him. Nobody will. So he ends up going over to, he ends up kind of going and like pouring out his woes. And what happens is Wiley Burp is there. He's, the law dog, and he's just like sleeping there at the sheriff's house the whole time. And how the humans in this world do not notice any of this, I have no idea. Because like, we see the humans occasionally, but they have no concept of what's going on. And so Fievel keeps talking. He's like, I wish that there was someone who could help me, like the famous law dog, like Wiley Burp. And Wiley Burp eventually ends up like making Fievel realize by like having Fievel come over and like read the badge that says, Wiley Burp Sheriff and everything on it. And Fievel's like, wow, you are him. And like, Wiley Burp is like he's a very old dog and everything, and he's probably seen a lot of fights at that point in time. But he's like, if you can bring me a dog, I can train him. And Fievel's like, but I don't know any dogs. But I do know a god. So this leads into where Fievel, via reasons back at the, he makes his way back to the tribe where Tiger is. And beforehand, he had ended up getting sprayed with like some of Miss Kitty's perfume, so he uses like the smell from the perfume to like motivate Tiger, which is like a good little, playoff thing there. And they take what ends up happening is Fievel takes Tiger to Wiley Burp because they have to get Tiger trained up, so he's ready to go up against the other cats to save the mice, because like, it's like the next day at like sunset or whatever is when this is supposed to be, or high noon or whatever, I don't remember, but it's like supposed to be like the next day is when this is going to happen, so they have to get Tiger trained up. And we have this sequence where it's Wiley Burp trying to get Tiger to act like a dog, and like, it does not go well at first. They keep trying, it doesn't go well. Tiger just does not do good at this because he's a cat, he's not a dog. It just has like Fievel laughing in the background, which is hilarious because I'd be doing the same thing here. It's like imminent death is coming to my people, but my cat friend just fell off of a rock formation and is fine. So sure, I'll laugh at this. And eventually they, like there is like this kind of breakthrough moment where Tiger, when they're in one of the caves in the mountain, it's a mountain range and caves and everything by a mining town, there's of course going to be echoey caves, and they end up in the caves, and like it starts with him trying to get it starts with Wiley trying to get Tiger to like find his inner bark, and that like starts leading into him figuring it out. And then like he gets a dog collar to prove that he's good, and Wiley, messes with Tiger's ears to make them look more like, like a dog's ears or whatever. So it's just like fun stuff like that. And then they're all set and ready. And like the next day when it's all time to show up, when it's time, like all the mice are sitting on like the stands for the saloon opening that is connected to the, the mousetrap snap. They're all sitting there, and they're all, just before they're able to finish cutting the ribbon, which is like that ribbon would have been cut anyway. It's not that hard of a thing to like set off this trap. But what happens is that's when Wiley and Tiger and Fievel show up, and they're ready to fight the cats. And like we have like this fun fight scene that's filled with like different references, I'm sure, to like different westerns and shootouts and stuff like that. And while this is going on, Tanya and Miss Kitty realize, oh no, it is a mousetrap, and so they jump down, or Tanya jumps down, and she is able to like get all the mice to leave because, of course, Caterwaul won't snap the trap with her on it. Although, given the fact that he was about to kill her family anyway, was he just going to continue to force her to sing at the saloon even after he, mouse burgered Mama and Papa Mousekewitz? Was that his intention? This does not seem like a wise thing to do, but whatever. But she's able to, they get all the rest of the mice free, and then via the whole fighting and everything else like that, Chula takes Miss Kitty hostage and is about to like drop her off the top of like the building where the saloon is. Again, how the humans in this town do not notice any of this, I have no idea. Also, Caterwaul has a gun, which I like. I was like, I don't like that he has a gun, but there's like a moment where he the gun is on like a stand that he has to have it on so he can like point it at what he needs and then pull the trigger, because it's much too big, so it's like supposed to be like a more, I guess, properly sized gun, which is funny. And what ends up happening is, so Miss Kitty is captured by the tarantula, which like, why the tarantula would think that Miss Kitty would have any sway over the other people, I guess, but whatever. This just incenses Tiger, and he like plows his way through all the other cats, gets up there, and faces off against the spider. And like at this point in time, all the rest of the cats have been like chased up and knocked out, like they're on top of the on the mousetrap. And Fievel has managed to get his way onto the gun and is like chasing Caterwaul with it. Not like Fievel's not running with the gun, but he's making the gun spin like chasing Caterwaul until Caterwaul lands on the mousetrap as well. And then Tiger launches, is able to save Miss Kitty and tosses the spider onto the thing, and then they set off the mousetrap, which then launches all the cats. And they end up getting launched into like the mailbag by the train station as like the train is leaving, and that gets taken with the train. And then Caterwaul is like pulled into the train by like this very prim, very rich whatever lady, and she just like grabs him and like turns him into like a baby kitty, which is just funny. Starts treating him like that, which he despises. So that happens. Also, what happens is, of course, Miss Kitty and Tiger are reunited and everything, and Tanya becomes like this great singer and everything, and they're able, the water starts flowing from the water tower again, so it's like now they're actually able to have a nice town to live in and everything. And Fievel's, his parents and everyone are so thankful to Fievel. It was like, maybe you should start believing your son, whenever he points out that maybe we shouldn't trust the cats right now. I don't get it, but whatever. And the ending of the movie ends up being that that's the heater, Brenda. It's making everything warmer in here because it's very cold outside. I know you're very good, Brenda. I'm almost done. And what ends up happening is Fievel makes his way over to where Wiley Burp is, and Wiley hands his sheriff badge over to Fievel, which is really cute. And, he's very unsure about this, but Wiley's like, no, I believe in you and everything. And, your journey's not over yet. So, it's like making, Fievel really big. And that's kind of the allegory of, like, the cowboy riding off into the sunset for, like, Wiley Burp, which is, like, a nice little homage there. To like the Western genre and everything. So that's nice there. It's like the way that, like, Blazing Saddles itself is an homage to Westerns. It's a parody of a Western, yes, but it's also an homage to Western because Mel Brooks loved Westerns. And Steven Spielberg, who is one of the big producers, because it's done through one of his Amblin Entertainment, his animation company, was one of the people in charge of this movie. And one of the overseers for it. And in that regard, it's kind of a love letter to, like, Westerns and stuff like that. Which is kind of nice. I'm trying to remember if Steven Spielberg has subsequently done a Western. I think he has. I know he's done lots of, like, World War II movies and everything else like that. Like, Indiana Jones has, like, hints of Westerns, hints of a Western in it at times and everything. But yeah, you get the idea. But, like, that's kind of how, like, the movie ends. And then into the cast. So, Philip Glazer is Fievel. Kathy Cavadini is Tanya Mouskowitz. And then we have Dom DeLuise as Tiger. Was in Blazing Saddles. Has been in several Mel Brooks movies. And then we have Amy Irving as Miss Kitty. And, fun fact, she actually provided the singing voice for Jessica Rabbit in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. She provided the singing voice in the movie for that. Also, in kind of the inspiration for the Miss Kitty character, there's probably, there's, like, the references to, like, Miss Kitty a little bit from, like, the Lone Ranger and, like, other stuff like that, because there was always, like, a Miss Kitty at the bar or whatever like that in lots of Westerns and everything like that. She's supposed to be, like, the saloon girl type thing. Knows how to be tough, but she's actually really nice and everything once you get to know her, and that's kind of like the archetype they were going with her, which is perfectly fine. And what ends up happening is kind of her inspiration also comes a little bit from Mae West, is kind of like for how, like, she's drawn, for how she's animated and how she moves. And if you have any idea who Mae West is, I love that. If you don't, just go look her up. She was great. She wrote tons of plays. She was so against the Hollywood screen code for, like, propriety and everything else like that. And she has the line of, come up and see me sometime. She was, like, the sex symbol in, like, the early 1900s. She was great. And then we have, two other ones that I will mention for the cast, that are just great. So, James Jimmy Stewart is Wiley Burp. Jimmy Stewart, as in, just pick a Jimmy Stewart. You should know who Jimmy Stewart is. If you've seen It's a Wonderful Life, he's, of course, Mr. Bailey, so many other movies. This was actually his last film role. Playing Wiley Burp was his last film role, and he had been, I believe, approached by Steven Spielberg to play this role. Jimmy Stewart has done Westerns before. I think he was in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and then, like, because he was a movie star at the time frame when, like, Westerns were big, so he'd been in a couple of Westerns as well. But yeah, he plays Wiley Burp. Jimmy Stewart is Wiley Burp. And yeah, this was his last film role. He didn't die just after this. This was in, like, 1991, and I don't think he died until, like, 1987. So there were still a few years there, but, like, this was his last role, which is nice. And then the other one, Caterwaul is played by John Cleese. So, Monty Python fans, or what was it? Faulty Towers, a bunch of other stuff for John Cleese. He's been in so many movies, so I love John Cleese. Movies, shows, take your pick. He's great. But yeah, he's Caterwaul, which is great because at various points in time when he's trying to sound like a Western cowboy, he keeps saying yowl instead of you all, instead of y'all, which is just funny for how that goes. So it's just kind of like, he does great, and he's clearly like eating up the scenery. So that's just fun there. And then John Lovitz plays T.R. Ranchula, T.R. Chula. And he was a comedian, is what he's done. He's fun, but that's what I have here. I think the next one on this list is Fern Gully. I think it's the next one that I'll be doing the review for. So I don't know when that will be. These all go up sporadically. Depending on when I'm going to be doing stuff. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice rest of the day. And if you haven't watched An American Tale 2 Fievel Goes West for a while, go watch it. It's fun to watch. So, bye.